Hello and welcome to another episode of Gaffer Gear. Today we're going to look at how to fold and unfold heavy stands, namely steel combo stands and wind-up stands. Okay, so let's start off with the combo stand. So undo the lock off to the legs. Now don't undo both of them, only undo the top one. If you undo them both, everything can just fall into a big mess. So undo the top one. Now create a little bit of a gap between your legs and the center shaft. Now what we're going to do next is lift up the center shaft, and at the same time we're going to hold on to this lock off to hold the legs in place. Now what we're going to do is lift them both up a little bit to get the stand legs off the ground. Then we pull the shaft up higher and we're done. Now just a little additional tip of my own. I put my shoe underneath the stand, particularly if I'm working on people's wooden floorboards. That way I know I'm not going to hit their floorboards. Now there are three methods that I use for packing these stands up. Now I'll just go through the first method. This is the most simplistic in terms of its logic. So all we're going to try and do is move the stand legs back up the shaft. So grab hold of one section of the stand there. Now make sure you don't have your fingers in it anywhere where they're going to get caught, and undo the lock off. Now use the lock off handle to pull the stand legs up the shaft. Okay, so pretty straightforward in its theory. However, there is one problem with doing that, and that problem is that the legs are always touching the floor. So if you're working on somebody's floorboards, you might scratch them. So how I get around that is I use my foot to raise the light stand. Okay, so I just lift it up just enough that the feet get off the floor. Now I do that simultaneous to doing everything else. So now I'm going to use my foot to raise the stand off the floor as I pull the legs up. And nothing touches the floor, nothing gets scratched. Now the next method is the method I use pretty much all the time. So we're going to take advantage of gravity. So what we're going to do is have one leg on the ground, and we're going to have two legs in the air. Now the leg that's on the ground has to be the leg that's opposite the lock off. Okay, so that's quite important. So you can tip the stand up just by doing this, or you can lift it up. It's up to you. So if you're going to lift it up though, I would suggest to grab up high, grab higher than the stand legs can move up the column, and use the lock off as your next grabbing point and do that. Okay, now what we're going to do here is we're going to undo this lock off. And when we undo this lock off, gravity is going to force the stand down. So when we undo that, the stand might collapse. So with this hand here, be prepared to take the weight. Okay, so I'm taking the weight there, undoing this one, and then I hold on to the lock off and I use both hands to gently collapse the stand down. Now the next method is a mix of the previous two. We're going to pull the legs back up the shaft, but at the same time we're going to lift two of the legs ever so slightly off the ground, and we're going to do that simultaneously. So undo the lock off, lift the two legs off the ground slightly and pull the legs up simultaneous, and there you go. Okay, so let's have a look at unfolding a wind-up stand. So wind-up stands are really simple to unfold. Just undo the lock off. Now have one leg opposite you. Now that leg that's opposite you, you keep that on the ground. Now you grab hold of the other two legs and you raise them slightly off the ground and then walk backwards. That's really quite simple. Now if you want to pack it up, what you do is you put your foot underneath the struts and you raise the struts up and lift the other two legs off the ground, or the two legs closest to you off the ground, and there you go. Really, really straightforward. So let's have a look at another method for packing these up. Now the first method works the majority of the time, but if the floor is slippery, you find yourself just pushing the stand along. So in that case, this method works a bit better. So we want to tip it up, keep one leg on the ground and two legs in the air. Now this stand's a little bit heavier than the other stand, so this is how I suggest you do it. Put your foot behind the leg that you're going to lift up onto, and remember you want to lift up onto the leg that is opposite the lock off, okay? Now what we do from this point is undo the lock off here, grab a hold of the lock off, and we're going to use that as a handle to lift the legs up. Now don't put your hands in any of the voids in here, okay, because it can get caught. So keep your hands on that lock off and it won't happen. Pull the lock off up, being in control of the speed, and there you go, packed up again. Make sure you lock off. Now, what if you're vertically challenged? What if you're shorter than the stand or the stand is taller than you? So both of the previous methods might prove to be a bit hard. So this method will probably work best for you. Now this method involves a bit of lifting. So when we do lifting, we always bend at the knees. Okay, so you get down, undo the lock off, grab the struts, okay, and raise at your legs, raise your knees, and pull the stand legs in closer together. Now from this point, it's easy to control the stand. Now just careful where you put your fingers. Now at this point, all you want to do is lift the stand up, so one leg stays on the ground and two legs go off the ground, okay? Now I've put my foot behind, I'll do that automatically so that nothing slides anywhere. So ever so slightly lift two of the legs off the ground and the stand will collapse under its own weight. And lock it off and you're ready to go. Now, I'm going to show you the most common way that a gaffer would unfold this stand. Now, you should only really give this a go after you've been doing this for quite a bit of time and you've really got the feel for the equipment. Okay, you just separate the legs out and lift up. That's the most common way gaffers will do it. It takes a bit of strength and you've really got to have a feel for the stand. Now, if you have a stand like this that has a really big base, you can just compact up the legs to reduce the size of the footprint. But don't reduce the size so much that the stand can fall over. Now from this point, you can select one of the other methods to pack it up. I'm Andrew Locke. See you on the next episode of Gaffer Gear.